Hi, my name's Philip. I'm an alcoholic. Have been, will be. Thankfully, I'm recovered. Um, Recovering. So I wanted to start with something that happened to me today, actually. I have the privilege of teaching yoga at Missouri Behavioral Health with Daniel. Daniel hired me. It's extremely important for me to be able to do that twice a week. Sorry if I get a little teary. It's kind of weird. So I go and I talk about feathers a lot. You guys know that about me. I talk about it kind of like nonstop. Anytime I hike, it's actually not hiking. It's just me looking for feathers. But it's like a, healthy way to look for feathers. So the the spiritual way, the spiritual understanding of that, if you ask Chat GPT or anything like that, finding a feather in your life in certain types, like certain points, usually when you're not looking for it or at a moment of significance at that time, it symbolizes that you're on the path of least resistance towards God, because the feather falls from the bird to the ground on the path of least resistance. It's just floating along with the air. So I went to move all the yoga mats in their room today, and lo and behold, underneath those yoga mats, I found this. It was just hanging out on the ground, kind of crumpled up. So that would be an example of me leading my life on the path of least resistance. I think clear as day as soon as I saw it. It was a little hard to instruct yoga after that, but I calmed myself down out of the excitement of finding that feather. So I'm going to talk about page 35 in the big book. This is about our friend called Jim. I know we've talked about this a couple times. Jim had a business, He had it going on, for sure. Nothing but a slight nervous disposition, like I'm sure a lot of people have in here, or have had in their life. Other people who don't have alcoholism have that as well, but Jim drank over it. He got into the habit of drinking over his emotions on a regular basis, and that's how he handled his emotions. So the part that I like about Jim's story is not that, he had a commendable war record. He was a good salesman. He ended up getting sober through AA. He got rehired at the company that he once owned. He went back out in his story. There's a major reason as to why he went back out, and it's, he made a beginning. His family was reassembled. He began to work as a salesman for the business he lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge on his spiritual life. I've found myself at that point, A part of my story in AA is relapse. I think it's part of everybody's story in AA. I've only known like a couple people that have come into the rooms and been like, womp, and they're just good to go. Maybe one or two. In my entire AA career, which is spanning 2 years as of today. So not that many of us get out of this unscathed as soon as we come in. Talk about it like it was when it was before. I was really lucky. I did not grow up in a bad home, bad childhood, anything like that. I had very loving parents, who I consider my godmothers here tonight. Cheryl, thank you. And I had friends. I had popularity. I had athleticism. I had the church too. Schweitzer United Methodist Church was a very big portion of my life. I grew up, I was a puppeteer, actually. When we got to tour, I was a herb, which is funny. I ended up selling a lot of it too. But Herb, Herb was the kind of older brother from the other puppet, and he talks like this, and we talk about God to children, and that was my Herb voice. So yeah, like in middle school, I was a puppeteer. We toured around. I got deeply into choir in there. Um, I was in the youth program. My friends were at church. Were at Schweitzer United Methodist Church. I had a huge friend group. That and Southern Hills Swimming, which I met Kelly there. We've known each other since we were little kids. Not rough. My dad was extremely nice. My mother was a good mom, just based in reality. I always like to say that I had like the best of both sides, and I still do. Um, I have a seemingly overly optimistic father and a seemingly pessimistic mother, and they kind of meet in the middle and like form a rational thought out of my head. So I'm not always battling whether or not I'm good enough or whether or not I'm bad enough. From an outside perspective, I got both of those things from my parents. It didn't change the way that I felt inside about myself. I compare myself to other people constantly as a child. Just didn't have that security locked down that, I found in alcohol. I really did find it in alcohol. And it didn't start off terrible. I say that about all this good childhood and everything like that, but face the fact, I was in handcuffs 3 times before I was 17 years old. That's not like a normal thing that you go through. And all for selling or driving under the influence. So having a good childhood, having a bad childhood, I don't have excuses. I don't have excuses for my alcoholism on that. Friendship wise, and everything that I felt like on the inside and insecurity wise, that was of my own doing, of my own overthinking. Just the complete absence of the ability to turn my will over to anything besides myself on a subconscious level, not like a conscious level, like I was actively choosing to be, I'm smarter than this and I'm better than this. I just didn't know. It was deeply locked in my subconscious that I just didn't care. Things were going good for me. Alcohol started out fun. It started out in basements of my friends' houses, sneaking drinks, mixing liquor. Say that the first 2 times that I actually got intoxicated, I'm pretty sure I gave myself alcohol poisoning. I just throw up really hard, really bad. The next day I was completely wiped. Couldn't do anything at all. But I was so young that I could get away with it like it was just, I was sick or whatever like that. And that's why I couldn't go to school. In 8th grade, once I got arrested for, selling fake weed, which makes it sound even worse that I was a part of that. I wish it was just real, then I'd have something to talk about. But I did get put in a paddy wagon with 2 other people when I was 13. And that was kind of like the gigs up in middle school. I had to change friend groups. I went from all my friends being in Pershing mainly to all my friends being in Hickory. And that all had to be associated. That was associated with Schweitzer United Methodist Church too. I mean, all the Hickory kids, country club kids went to Schweitzer. So I started hanging out with them more. I would have hung out with my Pershing friends, but frankly, their parents didn't want me around. It was a bad influence, probably because I was put in a paddy wagon. It's not like normal behavior for a middle schooler. High school, I had athleticism. I had soccer. I had club soccer. I had high school soccer. I had all these things lined up. I was in choir. Here's my the pessimistic side of it. I was all state in choir, but my mom makes me know that I was actually alternative. So if somebody got sick, then I would have been fully all state, but I wasn't fully. I still got pipes though. I still got pipes, I swear. Um, so I had a lot of accolades. I graduated with a 3.9. That's not terrible. My high school had 13 valedictorians, which I think is just more speaking to the volume of like our education system that it is that I went to school with a bunch of smart people. I think high school was just easy. It was super easy. And getting into drugs and alcohol in that scene in Glendale was very, very easily attained. We had a very mixed crowd of people who didn't have a lot of money, and then people who were, working on their second Audi because they crashed theirs when they're 16 or 17 years old. So it's kind of like a haven for a drug market. Now, but one group of people would be able to sell to the other group of people, and then they'd all kind of commingle in the middle. I was right in the middle on almost all of that. So high school was of my own doing. That's my alcoholism. Alcoholism, I believe, is of my own doing. It is a disease, and I have definitely recognized that I do not drink like a normal person, and I never did. First time I took a sip of liquor that I tried to, I got drunk. And it's not that I did it on accident. I tried to get drunk. I wanted to get drunk. So from there on out, every time I drank alcohol, I was drinking alcohol to get intoxicated. I don't know why anybody would drink alcohol if they didn't want to get intoxicated. It's just a beyond thought for me. That's the basis of an alcoholic. I can kind of understand that. I think anybody can. That kind of party lifestyle, risk-taking behavior is what I was into. That forms all the way back to my childhood, me being insecure about looking how I looked compared to the person next to me, or compared to the person before me, or the one after me. It didn't really matter. I was insecure. Alcohol and drugs gave me the ability to highlight my character, highlight what I could do, be the dangerous person, but also get away with it because I was alternative All-State Inquirer, as I was reminded. I was a good kid. I was a cross bearer in high school for Schweitzer, every Sunday, and an acolyte. I would sing at the 11 o'clock service as a soloist, more often than not. And I'll never forget this one time. I was 17, and I would sing at the 9 o'clock, and then I'd sing at the 11 o'clock. In between there, I'd go out into their prayer chapel, and I'd take a little dugout, and get a little high, come back in and sing the 11 o'clock service. And then these older ladies would just not praise, but one was just almost in tears after the service. But that was so touching. And I'm like, if you only knew how baked I am right now. Huh? And again, that was my MO. Was I show up, but I'm halfway in the door. I show up, but I'm already looking for another way out. My presence is known, but on the inside, I'm not really wanting to do any of it. I'm kind of it's called escapism. When we're talking about enhancing our spiritual life, I enhanced every negative portion of my life that I could because it made me feel good. Alcohol made me feel good. I believe in that portion of the big book that said we are alcoholics because we like the effects of alcohol. Yeah, like everybody else does too. I don't know anybody that has had a few back and they're not joyous, or unless you have that gene to where it turns you into a rage monster if you're drinking Irish whiskey or something like that. And I met a few like that, but I think even in their head, they're having a good time. They're more comfortable than they were before. I used drugs and alcohol to elevate, to enhance every scenario that I was in. Before soccer games, I'd smoke. That would somehow make me feel like I could play better. I have no idea why. There were times where, pre-shows, pre-concerts, when I was singing in a band, we would get heavily loaded because it made it more fun. It enhanced my experience right there. That enhancement just set in stone for me. I was an elevation drinker, man. I didn't drink because I was depressed. I didn't drink over a girl. I didn't drink over a fight. It just never really happened. I just took it, rolled with it. It's all good. I drink to elevate my life, to enhance my life. And once I heard a speaker on New Year's Eve say that he drank spiritually, it hit me in my chest, man. It hit me in my solar plex, because that's what I was doing my whole life. I didn't realize that I was getting fucked up that whole time because I was looking for God. And then that feeling, that was God to me. Because I know what God feels like now. And it gives me that same sort of feeling, In yoga, we talk about chakras. Chakras are certain alignments in the body, energy alignments. And whenever that was said, I had a realization about the will of God. That can be really tricky. We all hear everybody talk about, I'm real quick to take that will over and take it back into my hands. I can be too, for sure. It's difficult to get out of that mode, but it's that heart chakra, and it's a feeling. There's not a physical movement that you can do to open it. There's nothing you can do physically, but mentally and spiritually you can get there. And I've felt it. I've felt it when I've come out of rapid access burl meetings. I've felt it whenever, first time that I got to pray with Tom in a group of people, and I held his prayer bundle, and tears were streaming down my face. I wasn't crying. It sure damn looked like it. It just hit me, and I felt this warmth right here, like it had opened up. And then I realized that was about the same feeling that I had when I had 5 or 6 drinks, as it slowly trickled down my throat, coming down to my stomach and coming back up and warming my heart chakra. So I was filling every void that I had with drugs and alcohol. And it worked. It did for a really long time. Me and my friends would get very intoxicated and talk about God. 100%. And people thought we were weird. They couldn't keep up with this. I mean, my other friend, he's getting his doctorate in sports medicine and psychology. He's a very smart dude. All my friends at that age were considered high upper knowledge people in high school, like top of their class, overachievers. So when we would get high and get drunk and talk about God, it was a little bit hard to follow. So we'd have a lot of Lord of the Rings references and Star Wars references. So we're big nerds too. And realizing that I drank spiritually, that every time I was drinking was like me praying. That hurt. That hurt to hear that. It's not something that I'd realized before. So having that hole filled, I went about my life impulsively, emotionally. Carl Jung is one of our psychologists, our famed ones, and I like reading on him. He talks about fear, and he talks about love a lot. When we're children, when we're first born, that's the 2 things that we know that are instilled in us, is fear and love. My understanding of fear is that I have something and I don't want to lose it. So I'm going to create a motive, and then I'm going to base my motive off that emotion that I felt, and I'm going to take action. usually end up losing the thing that I had in the process. It might not have been mine to begin with, or I might have just egotistically messed my way out through the door on that one, you know? The other portion of that fear is that we want something that we don't have, and we don't know how to get it. So we're going to create a motive on that, and then I'm going to act on that motive. I haven't found any permanence on that at all in any way. Once I look back at all the decisions that I made, whether it becomes to career choices, to people that I'm seeing, falling in love with, the way I treated my family, even the way I treated myself, that was all fear-based motives, 100%. And the more I look back at it, the more it makes me feel like I was just grasping at straws for about the majority of my life. Just grasping for anything so I could hang on. As I was out there, man. From that, just it got wild after that. Everything that I did was based on an emotional basis. I mean, I got fired from my first corporation job when I was 24. So my first immediate decision was, well, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so fearful. This town is so small, you know, screw them anyways. And I moved to New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans with just my car. I lived in a hostel for 3 months until my parents helped me find an apartment, and I got a job as a sous chef in the French Quarter. It was about the most romantic way you could be an alcoholic that I knew of, at least. And I did. I watched the show Treme a lot on HBO, so I kind of had this idea of like, that's where I want to go for sure. If I'm going to do this chef thing, you know, there's that fear. I want something. I don't know how to get it. So I'm going to create a motive, and I'm going to behave off that. And that was an insane decision. I don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it by any means, but I can recognize that as insanity. I can recognize that as something not well thought out that other people probably wouldn't do. That thrill-seeking behavior was still within me that came and originated from my alcoholism, from the need to fit in, the need to fill that insecurity, you know. And I met a girl there. She ended up taking me to New York. So I lived in New York for about 7 years. All collectively, I was gone out of Springfield for around 10. And New York was filled with every opportunity that I could possibly imagine to fill that hole with. You know, the fear enveloped in that city and enveloped in the culture that I was living in as a chef was very, very tangible. Well, I had a 600 square foot apartment. I think my parents saw it. It was like, you could call it a 1-bedroom. They did. For sure. You know, and it might have been 600 square feet. So how do you get out of there? You know, I was sous chefing at a restaurant in Bushwick, Brooklyn. It's Mob Haven. I was working for an Italian. He was from Sicily. His name was Charlie Verde. You cannot get more Italian than that, or Sicilian than that. And I was sous chefing for him, his restaurant, working for an Argentinian chef, not making a lot of money. I was ordering, got to get introduced to the delivery service in New York City, which you basically don't have to leave your apartment in New York if you can get anything delivered, including cocaine, heroin, marijuana, alcohol, anything you want. I got introduced to a marijuana service where you could just text this app that was a secret app, you know, and it hid all your text messages and wiped the whole slate clean every 24 hours. So I started ordering from this company. Now, that's when I kind of like, I quit my job. I had this moment of rage with anger. Anger is just an easier form to show fear. Yeah, I was worried about my financial situation. I was worried about letting my parents down. I was worried about letting my friends down. I was worried about how I looked as a failed chef in New York City, not being able to pull it off, not being able to live this kind of lifestyle that I wanted to live or that I thought was glamorous. So I quit, super angry. Charlie tried to get me to come back. I said no. I didn't like the Argentinian chef I was working for. He had a serious cocaine habit that basically made me do all the work, and it would have been the same somewhere else. I was young, it didn't matter what he did. It always mattered what I did. And it still matters to this day what I do. I've become to realize that. When I ordered from the company 2 days after I quit, I asked for employment. I don't know if anybody's asked a drug dealer if you can work for him, but it's a weird thing to ask for. My personality type at the time, it fit. I got hired. That was a wild experience. That was definitely different. The weirdest interview I'd ever had, for sure. You kind of just got hired into the spot. It was a biking delivery service company, and I really accredit a lot of physical health that happened through force in my life that allowed me to carry on my alcoholism so long that it allowed me to hit the rock bottom that I appropriately needed to hit. Biking like 80 to 120 miles a day, all throughout Brooklyn, feeling the senses, hearing every noise. You go from one street, would be Puerto Rican. You go to the next street, it's super quiet because it's a unorthodox Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. And then you go a little bit further, and you'd be with a Caribbean neighborhood. And just the waft of smells coming from the entire city as you're biking through and hitting all these nooks and crannies is really it was beautiful. I had moments of clarity during that time. I had my first spiritual experience while I was selling, and I was intoxicated. I was coming up there's a path on the East River that goes all the way from South Brooklyn to North Brooklyn, and it just follows the river. It was a late drop off in Red Hook, which is real down there. So I was biking on my way up, and the wind, it was about 11 o'clock at night. It was really, really cold. The wind hit me so hard that my bike just stopped. I couldn't even pedal any further. Bike just stopped, and I just kickstand out, and I gazed up at the city, where you're looking at South Manhattan and Middle Manhattan, and then you can see the uppers from there. And I felt it, man. I felt a spiritual experience. I felt like I was a part of something a lot bigger than what was going on in my egocentric mind that had been for so long. I didn't get sober then. Obviously not. No, I was having too much fun. And it was fun. I don't regret the past, nor do I wish to shut the door on it. The things that I had seen up there and the opportunities it gave me in New York, they were wild, man. And it kept me employed once I moved out of there, because being a chef or whatever from New York City, they'll all hire you immediately. I mean, they didn't realize that chefs up there, you get paid the same. I did a tryout one time, and it's like a follow is what they call it, a stage. So you go and follow the chef for like 8 hours. I asked their line cook, like, hey, how do you afford this, man? Like, he's like, well, I live with 4 other people in a studio apartment. I'm like, because he only gets paid $8 an hour. I'm like, are you for real? He's like, yeah. I was like, who are you roommates? And then he just points out 3 people that are working on the line. And I'm like, holy shit, this sounds terrifying. Like, I'm not going to be able to comfortably drink on that salary by any means at all. It's not going to happen. So, there the alcoholic mind starts to unravel. It starts to think of different ways you can afford Well, to me, God, because that was God to me. So how can I afford God in my life? Well, selling drugs. I always kind of came back to that some route from 8th grade on. It was always like a deep-seated thing that I had that I could pull out of my pocket at any time. Well, I could just sell narcotics. I could just sell something illegal and get away with it. The funny thing is I never really got away with it. I got away with it in New York, but definitely scathed. My alcoholism drove my ex insane. I feel absolutely terrible about it. That's the one amendment that I've prayed that I have for the willingness to forgive, and of course I do have. But how you even go about doing that besides writing a letter, even when you don't even have her address, is a difficult process. So I just have to live with that, and knowing that I could be a better person to myself makes me a better person to other people. At least humbles me a little. But that heartbreak was real. It was definitely real, and I carried it with me home. I got fired from being a drug dealer for being an alcoholic. I don't know if anybody's ever been down that. No. You got to drink a lot to get fired from being a drug dealer. Copious amounts. And you also have to act on an emotional basis constantly. And that's what I was doing. So I had developed a habit at that time that I could not take away from me. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't be social. I couldn't go to work. Hell no. I call those my 2 flash days, because I would go to work at a barbecue restaurant where I was assistant manager at, and you could wear jeans at the barbecue restaurant. That was great. I have 2 flasks in my back pocket, both filled up. So I would be carrying near a 5th of alcohol on me all the time. That would be gone within an 8-hour shift. Nobody knew I was drunk. And if they did, they certainly didn't tell me. I do recall a moment when I was walking down Broadway Street in North Brooklyn, and I broke down. I knew that it wasn't going to work, that my life had become unsustainable. So, of course, what do you reach out to your parents? My parents are loving, wonderful people. I knew that they would help me. This part of the manipulation that the alcohol has a hold of you. You'll do anything to manipulate anybody else just to further the next step, even if you don't want to drink. When I got home, I couldn't swallow my pride enough to live with my parents for very long. That was the basis of it. I lived in New Orleans. I lived in New York. I'm a solo individual. I need to move out of my parents' house. Truth of the matter fact, I've never lived alone until now. Till these past 4 months, I've never lived alone. I always lived with a girl, or lived with roommates, or lived with my parents. There's a sense of accountability in that. You can't completely be your ravenous alcoholic self when everybody else is around. Got to kind of hide it. So I moved into an apartment that was by the Battlefield Mall. Within 10 months, I gave myself stage 4 liver cirrhosis. The only time I've lived alone, I drank myself to death. Yeah. That's rough. I had that realization about 2 weeks ago. Like, the only time I've been in charge of myself, I broke my body down to the point to where I was drinking nearly a gallon of alcohol a day, still working. My liver and my kidneys had started failing, still working. I come home after those 2 flasks were done with my 8 to 10 hour shift as a pit boss at a barbecue restaurant. It's not easy work. It's hard. I thought it was funny because the restaurant's named Getting Basted. So, there I was. I'd come home and I'd drink another half a fifth at least because I needed to be able to move and walk around. At that point, my liver and my kidneys had failed so bad that my ankles would be about this big around, and my feet were about the size of cantaloupes by the time I got done with work. I had neuropathy all throughout my feet and through my hands. And the only thing that made me feel better was getting drunk. And then the occasional reach out, unfortunately, to my mother to see if anybody had any narcotics, any painkillers at all. I still wasn't willing to go out on the streets and get it, whatever they were talking about, you know? And it's become a massively huge problem. It's fentanyl or anything like that. I'm really lucky that I didn't go that route of trying to solve my pain, because now you get that stuff on the street, man. It's like one pill, you're out, you're done, you know. And you could have bought it by accident. That happened to a friend of mine. Somebody gave him a Xanax, and it ended up being pure fentanyl, just pressed into a Xanax bar. He had anxiety, and he's not even an alcoholic, or he's just a regular person that had anxiety and took a pill for help and almost died. He overdosed, almost didn't come back. So I got lucky with that one. Of course, I had to move back in with my parents. I could barely walk by the time I was done with that. You know, once it became light and I had been to the hospital, I don't know, maybe a dozen times or so, probably at that point. So they gave me a diagnosis. I can't remember which one is. But, yeah, stage 4 liver cirrhosis, and they gave me 4 weeks to live. At least that's what hospice said. I have pictures of that time. It's extremely disturbing to see yourself like that. Frail, bloated, and frail at the same time. I looked like a ghost. Like I couldn't recognize myself almost. I look at those pictures still, just to look and see how different it is now. I didn't die. I don't know. My best friend is here, and we identify as lizard people. We're both yoga instructors, and that comes with a certain amount of, like, you get injured sometimes, but we'll just be like, you'll go to bed and you'll wake up. We're lizard people. Did you survive stage 4 liver cirrhosis? Like, you'll be fine. And I did. I complained about my hips the other day, and then I woke up and I was like, she's right. Yep, lizard person. Yeah, see how long that lasts, you know. But to come back from stage 4 liver cirrhosis is a trip. It took St. Louis University Teaching Hospital saved my life, 100%. If I would have stayed in Springfield, Cox South, they don't have the level of trauma. They kind of badge you up, put you out the door, get you going. So when I was on hospice, they deliver something, and this is going to be a little disturbing, but if you ever do find yourself on hospice with facing like last days, the company mails you medication, and it's filled with Xanax, liquid morphine, large tablet ibuprofens, clozapines, hydrocodones. Just anything to make that last day or two like a little easier on you. It's called a death box. I know that because it said it on the box. It said death box. That was mailed to my name, to my address, from a hospice company, man. I didn't think much of it. I wasn't thinking much at all. Wasn't really able to, you know. This is what my mom had up to her ears with that bullshit. She put me on a runner in the hallway, and one morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I think, or something like that. Maybe it was in the evening. I don't know. I was in and out of consciousness basically for that entire 3-week period. Pulled me into her car on the runner, basically picked me up, that kind of heroic mother strength, and put me in the car, got me to SLU. As soon as they saw me, they admitted me to ICU. I stayed there for, 2 months, possibly. I had to relearn how to walk. It's not that I forgot. It's just if you're in a hospital bed for that long, your feet are pointing like that. So your calves go completely atrophied. As soon as I got up that first time, it felt like somebody was ripping my calves in half. And I just sat right back down. It was one of the most excruciatingly painful things. But as the lizard person that I am, like 2 weeks later in physical therapy, I was messing with the physical therapist and I was juggling one of the Pilates balls they had. And she was like, you have to stop doing that. You're afraid of getting sued. Most likely. Most hospitals are nowadays. I had a bright, cheery attitude towards it. I don't know how you can. I did, unless it was just straight up denial at my situation in life. Yeah, it felt easier to deny how much damage I had done to myself through my egotistical nature. So I'd joke, and getting somebody to laugh about it was better than me actually having to think about it. That deep reflection, deep, honest, rigorous moral inventory that the big book asks for you, I was incapable of doing that for a real long time. I was incapable of doing that on a daily basis, let alone thinking about my life and being rigorously honest with anybody else, even myself or God. Dodged a bullet, really slow bullet on that one. I wish that was the end of my drinking, but it was not. You'd think stage 4 liver cirrhosis in a death box, which I did end up eating that death box, in a relapse. Not all at once. It'd kill you. I think that's why it's labeled that. But slowly over time, the liquid morphine was gone. The clozapines were gone. The hydrocodone was gone. Everything else was. It's just, I needed to escape. That was the original reason why. I needed to elevate and escape. Nothing was good enough in that moment. And if it was bad, I could pull myself out of it. But I had to elevate beyond that. I lived, a pretty rough life for a while after that. I had more than enough support. I had, when I hear other people's stories in the rooms and talking about their upbringing, I had a wealth of support behind me that I could not even bear to understand or even accept into my life. Maybe it's my egotistical nature, or I just didn't understand how grave my status of living was, how fragile it was. I thought I could get through anything. That's definitely not true. So I started working in kitchens again, starting getting back to the deal. I was in and out. It was a realization after, I got caught relapsing that I most definitely needed to do something about it. When I got back to the from hospital the first time, the first AA meeting that I've ever been to was actually in Manhattan, and my friend took me there after I got fired from being a drug dealer. I don't remember anything that was said during that meeting. I do remember where it was located. It was off of East 13th Street in the East Village. And they had meetings there every hour on the hour. So it was like a clockwork Manhattan style meeting. But the first meeting that I ever went to was actually in this building. It was here. My parents have some pretty good friends that have been affected by the community of Alcoholics Anonymous in a very positive light. So when I got back, they reached out, of course. And his name is Jim M. He told me to come here. He met me here. I still talk to him every once in a while. He's an important person in my life. He's an important person in a lot of people's lives. I know. For sure. I'm very lucky to have those kind of friends. That and Grundy is another person that was very influential in seeing how it worked in their life, or kind of planting this seed in the back of my head that I even know was growing. And after the relapse, I got to go to rehab in Florida. Again, me and my will. I didn't want to go to rehab in Missouri. I was completely against the idea. I wanted to go to rehab like in sunny Florida. I want to be like make sure there's a pool. I got to make sure there's a gym and a pool. Like, who cares, man? That place was garbage anyways. I mean, it was a good place. It was in Florida. It was in a bad neighborhood. It was outside of Fort Lauderdale. So, Pompano Beach, I got it tattooed on my chest like an idiot. Uh, like, uh, yeah. And I also have Jersey tattooed on my chest. So I look like a pretty trashy tattoo plate. Jersey in Florida. But, rehab didn't work, but I did meet somebody in rehab that had a deep effect on my life. They called him the rabbi, which is weird because he was ordained through the Catholic Church, but he was born in the 60s. He was adopted into a Jewish family. Both of his parents had survived the Holocaust. That's why they adopted him. They wanted to raise a child. He used to tell me he was a facilitator, so he'd go around and do AA meetings at rehabs, which is fun because I've been doing that. I've been going to Synergy. I've had the ability to go there and run 12-step meetings for them for about a couple months now. That's kind of a weird circle, an awesome circle, but he was big on AA, and he was super smart. His favorite thing to do, he said, was armed robbery and shoot heroin. That was his number one favorite. That was his pastime. Like, you like baseball? Oh, I love armed robbery and shooting dope. It's like, okay, right on, man. Word. I played soccer, though. He was smart, man. AA got him out of San Quentin. He was in the secure housing unit in San Quentin. That's the SHU unit. It costs over $35,000 a day to house somebody in the SHU unit because he was a repeated violent offender. No hope, man. None at all. AA gave him hope. AA gave him a life. When he got out of San Quentin, he got accepted into the Harvard School of Divinity. That's like your top-notch, I mean, it's Harvard, and it's like the school about, I guess, theology and world religions and everything like that. So he was a huge presence, I've thought about him almost every day for a long time now. The way he would not preach, but talk about AA in reality in his life. It's something that I didn't think I needed, I'm up in rehab like 20 days in, and I'm looking around at these repeat offenders, which I ended up being one, and I'm like, there's no way. I'm not an idiot, dude. I'm not going to go back out there and drink. Like, I'm not going to end up back in the same rehab. What a dumbass. Like, how do you, like, really? I've talked to somebody that'd been there 3 times. I'm like, how? How is that even possible? How did you not get it the first time? Well, when I got out of rehab, I immediately relapsed. Immediately. Within 6 hours on a Mad Dog 2020 with directions to a liquor store, with directions to a hotel room. So, I guess they were right. It took me a long time to get into AA after that. Besides that first couple meetings that I do mostly for appeasement, for my family, maybe appeasing a part of me that I didn't know was there yet. And I ended up going back out over and over and over again. I can't even call it relapsing at that point. I just call it managing alcoholism, which, as we I've become to understood it's completely unmanageable if you're an alcoholic like myself. So I got into a really bad car wreck. That was my last relapse. When you're talking about rock bottoms, man, yeah, stage 4 liver cirrhosis should have been it, but it wasn't. I hit a spiritual rock bottom. I had to see a way out. I could see where my life was going for sure because I'd already had clear examples of where my life had gone because of alcoholism. But I couldn't see where my life would go to the right. I didn't know what that open road looked like. So that's what it took, is a spiritual breakdown. And I found that through my own doing. I'm incredibly glad I found that. I'm going to end with a prayer. And thank everybody for coming, just keeping hope alive for me. O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me hear the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and every rock. I need strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so when life fades as a fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. Oh, thank you.